Food delivery driver by day, numbers genius by night. He thought quickly, solved equations effortlessly, and saw patterns that no one else could perceive. But an unexpected delivery put him face to face with a unique opportunity, and the man who would change his destiny forever. Since the age of 14, Matthew Harrison had grown accustomed to seeing the streets of Puebla through the handlebars of his bicycle. The sun dipped behind the colonial buildings as he pedaled hard, feeling the weight of the thermal backpack on his shoulders. It was his third delivery of the afternoon, and there were still 5 more to go before he could head home. "Matthew, take this order to Angelopolis. It's urgent," shouted Mr. Frank, the owner of El Rinconcito Poblano, as he handed him another steaming bag. The boy nodded without protest. Angelopolis was the most exclusive area of the city, with its luxury condominiums and gleaming shopping centers. It meant a long trip, steep hills, and customers who rarely left a decent tip, but he needed every penny he could earn. "I'm on it, Mr. Frank." As he packed the order into his backpack, Matthew ran mental calculations. "If I take the main avenue, it'll be 15 minutes, but with the traffic at this hour, better take the shortcut through Reformer Street. 7 minutes less, 30% more efficient," he thought, automatically adjusting the route in his head. Mathematics was his escape. When his legs ached after hours of pedaling, or when his stomach reminded him that he had barely eaten, Matthew took refuge in numbers. They were constant, predictable, comforting. An orderly universe that contrasted with the uncertainty of his daily life. When he got home, his mother, Lucy, greeted him with a tired hug. She worked double shifts as a nurse to support the family ever since his father had abandoned them 5 years ago. "How was your day, sweetheart?" she asked as she served a plate of beans and rice for his younger siblings, Carmen and Daniel, who were doing their homework at the kitchen table. "It was good, Mum. Lots of deliveries today." Matthew pulled a few crumpled bills from his pocket and placed them on the table. "It's enough to cover half the electricity bill." Lucy's eyes moistened slightly. "You shouldn't be working so much. You should be studying like your friends." "My friends can't solve differential equations," Matthew replied with a smile, trying to lighten the mood. Mr. Ramirez, his math teacher at the public high school, had lent him advanced books after noticing his knack for numbers. "You have a gift, Matthew," he always said. But gifts didn't pay bills. The following Saturday was particularly exhausting. Unexpected rain had complicated the deliveries, leaving his uniform soaked and his shoes full of mud. His last delivery of the day took him to the Volcanoes, the most exclusive condominium in Angelopolis, with a panoramic view of the majestic Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl. When he reached the penthouse, Matthew rang the doorbell. The door opened to reveal a lavish apartment where several men in expensive suits were chatting animatedly on the terrace. The contrast with his own home, a small 2-bedroom apartment in the La Margarita neighborhood, couldn't have been more stark. "Finally, the food is here," exclaimed a man in his 50s, with graying hair and a watch that probably cost more than everything Matthew had earned in his life. "Good evening, sir. Your order from El Rinconcito Poblano," Matthew said, maintaining his composure and handing over the bag. The man, who later introduced himself as William Montero, took the order without looking directly at him, dropping a few bills into his hand. "Aren't you a little young to be working? Did you skip school or something?" he joked, eliciting laughter from his companions. Matthew took a deep breath, accustomed to these kinds of comments. "I study in the mornings and work in the afternoons, sir." "Well, at least you're learning a trade. Though delivering food won't get you far in life," Montero added, turning his back to return to his guests. It was then that Matthew saw it. On the glass table were dozens of papers scattered about, filled with numbers, graphs, and projections. His mind began working automatically, scanning the figures, detecting patterns, spotting inconsistencies. "Your performance calculation is wrong," he murmured almost to himself. Montero stopped in his tracks. "What did you say, kid?" Silence fell over the terrace. All eyes turned to Matthew, who pointed to one of the documents. "Right there, in that financial projection. If you continue with those investment parameters, you'll lose money. There's an error in the variable cost distribution and the return estimate. Montero's expression shifted from astonishment to disbelief. "And how would you know that? Are you some kind of financial genius disguised as a delivery boy?" "I just like numbers," Matthew replied, shrugging. One of the men, who later turned out to be Edward Rivers, the CFO of Montero Industries, picked up the papers and examined them with interest. "Could you be more specific?" he asked with genuine curiosity. Matthew hesitated for a moment, but something in Rivers' gaze encouraged him. He pointed to several points in the documents. "Here, you're calculating linear depreciation when it should be logarithmic for this type of asset. And in this part, the revenue projection doesn't account for the market seasonality mentioned on the previous page. Also, this ROI formula has a base error." Montero, visibly irritated, handed him a pen. "All right, Einstein of deliveries, show me where I'm wrong." Matthew took the pen and within minutes recalculated the projections on the back of one of the documents. He did it all from memory without a calculator, applying complex formulas with an ease that left everyone speechless. When he finished, Edward Rivers reviewed the calculations meticulously. His expression gradually shifted from doubt to amazement. "William, the kid is right," he finally said. "With our original calculations, the project would lose approximately 30 million pesos in the first 2 years. Montero snatched the papers from his CFO's hands. He frowned as he checked each number line by line. What he saw made his face pale. "What's your name, kid?" he asked in a completely different tone, a mix of respect and bewilderment. "Matthew?" "Harrison, sir." "Where did you study finance, Matthew?" "I didn't study finance. I'm in my last year of public high school. I just learn on my own." The confession left everyone silent. Montero looked at the young delivery boy as if seeing him for the first time. "Would you be interested in coming to my office next week? I'd like to test you with something more challenging." Matthew felt his heart race. Was this real? "I have school in the mornings and work in the afternoons." "We can work around that," Montero replied with a calculating smile. "Very few have the gift you just demonstrated, Matthew, and I never let an opportunity pass when I see one." As he left the luxurious condominium, Matthew pedaled faster than ever, not out of haste, but because of the adrenaline coursing through his veins. In his mind, there were no longer just delivery routes and tips, there were possibilities. For the first time in a long time, the numbers were showing him a different future. What he didn't know was that that night, while he was heading back to his humble home, William Montero was already making calls, inquiring about the mysterious young man who had saved his most important investment with a few simple mental calculations. A young man whose talent could become the centerpiece of his ambitious plans. The Montero Industries building stood imposingly in the financial district of Puebla, a colossus of glass and steel that reflected the clouds and blue sky. Matthew stopped in front of the entrance, still wearing his only pair of formal pants, too short for his legs, and a white shirt his mother had ironed 3 times that morning. "Good morning, I'm here to see Mr. Montero," he said in a shaky voice to the receptionist, who looked at him with obvious confusion. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, scrutinizing him from head to toe. "Yes, my name is Matthew Harrison." The woman typed something into her computer, and her expression changed abruptly. "Oh, Mr. Montero is expecting you. 25th floor, his assistant will meet you." As he stepped off the elevator, Matthew was led to a conference room where William Montero was talking with Edward Rivers and a woman he didn't know, elegantly dressed in a pantsuit. "Here's our math prodigy," Montero exclaimed upon seeing him. "Matthew, this is Dr. Sofia Mendoza, director of the Montero Foundation for Exceptional Talent." The woman extended her hand with a warm smile. "We've heard a lot about you, Matthew. William is convinced you're a numerical genius." "I wouldn't go that far," Matthew murmured, uncomfortable with the praise. "That's what we'll decide today," Montero interjected, pointing to a stack of documents on the table. "I've prepared some problems, nothing too complicated, just some financial projections, resource optimization, risk analysis, simple stuff." Matthew nodded, though inside he felt his stomach twisting. Over the next hour, he solved problem after problem under the watchful eyes of the three adults. His fingers flew across the paper as his mind deciphered complex equations, with an ease that left everyone amazed. "Incredible," Dr. Mendoza whispered when Matthew finished the last exercise. "He has a mathematical talent I've only seen in exceptional cases." Montero smiled, satisfied. "I told you, Sophia, this kid could revolutionize our financial analysis department." "What he needs is formal education, William," she replied. "A talent like this needs to be nurtured properly." "Why not both?" Montero suggested, turning to Matthew. "I have a proposal for you. The Montero Foundation will offer you a full scholarship to finish high school at the Mexican Institute, the best private school in Puebla. Plus, you'll work as an intern at my company 3 afternoons a week. We'll pay you a salary that, I assure you, will be considerably better than what you earn delivering food." Matthew felt the air leave his lungs. It was too good to be true. "Why would you do this for me, Mr. Montero?" The businessman leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "Because I recognize potential when I see it, Matthew. And because I know how to invest in the future." That night, when Matthew returned home and told his family what had happened, his mother cried with joy. His siblings hugged him tightly, celebrating what seemed like a miracle fallen from the sky. For the first time in years, hope illuminated the small Harrison apartment. However, the path ahead for Matthew would not be without challenges. His first day at the Mexican Institute was an experience that left a deep mark on him. As he entered the classroom, he felt all eyes on him. His new classmates, children of influential businessmen and politicians, looked at him with curiosity and, in some cases, barely concealed disdain. "Good morning, class," greeted Mrs. Rachel. "Valencia, today we have a new student, Matthew Harrison. He's here on a scholarship from the Montero Foundation, so I expect you to make him feel welcome." A murmur spread through the room. Matthew took a seat in the back row, trying to make himself invisible. Beside him, a girl with long black hair and intense eyes smiled at him warmly. "Don't mind them," she whispered. "They're harmless once you get to know them. I'm Isabella Vega." "Thank you," Matthew replied, grateful for the small gesture of kindness in such an unfamiliar environment. The classes turned out to be more challenging than he expected, not because of the academic content, but because of the cultural gap. His classmates talked about trips to Europe, parties on yachts, and clothing brands he had never heard of. He felt like an alien trying to blend in among humans. In math, however, Matthew shone brightly. When Mrs. Valencia presented a particularly complex problem, he was the only one who solved it correctly, earning looks of amazement and, in some cases, resentment. "Impressive, Mr. Harrison," the teacher commented. "I see your reputation wasn't exaggerated." After class, a group of students led by Diego Montalban, the son of a prominent local politician, approached him in the hallway. "So you're Montero's new charity project," Diego said with a mocking smile. "Is it true you used to deliver food?" Matthew held his gaze without flinching. "I still do on weekends." "Really?" Diego burst out laughing. "And how does it feel to go from delivering tacos to sitting with Puebla's elite?" Before Matthew could respond, Isabella stepped in. "It feels like having to put up with idiots like you, Diego. Leave him alone." The group dispersed with laughter and biting comments. Isabella took Matthew by the arm and led him toward the exit. "Don't let them get to you. Diego's jealous because his dad has been trying to form an alliance with Montero for years and hasn't succeeded." "Do you know Montero well?" Matthew asked curiously. Isabella nodded. "My dad is Edward Rivers, his CFO." The revelation surprised Matthew. No wonder the last name had sounded familiar. "Your dad was really kind to me the day I met Montero." "I know, he told me all about it. He says you have the most extraordinary gift for numbers he's ever seen in his career." The afternoons at Montero Industries proved equally challenging. Matthew was assigned to the financial analysis department, where he quickly proved his worth. Under Edward Rivers' mentorship, he learned about stock markets, investment models, and corporate strategies. However, not everyone was happy with his presence. Javier Olmedo, the head of analysis, saw the young prodigy as a threat to his position. He had worked 20 years to get where he was, and now a teenager with no experience was getting the attention of top executives. "I need these analyses by tomorrow," he said one day, dropping a stack of documents on Matthew's desk that would normally take days to process. Matthew worked until midnight, solving equations and creating predictive models with a precision that left Rivers stunned when he reviewed the work the next day. "This is extraordinary, Matthew," he said. "You've identified patterns our software didn't detect." Javier Olmedo listened from his office, clenching his fists in frustration. As the weeks passed, Matthew began to feel torn between two worlds. At the institute, despite Isabella's friendship and a few other classmates who valued his intelligence, he was still the scholarship kid, the outsider in foreign territory. At Montero Industries, he was admired for his talent, but also envied and watched with suspicion by those who saw him as a threat. And at home, though his family supported him unconditionally, Matthew sensed a growing distance. His new responsibilities left him little time to help his mother or play with his siblings. Sometimes when he came home late and found Carmen and Daniel already asleep, he felt a pang of guilt. One night, as they ate dinner in silence, his mother asked, "Are you happy with all this, sweetheart?" Matthew paused to think. Was he happy? He had opportunities he had never dreamed of. He was learning at a breakneck pace, and his work at Montero Industries had allowed his family to live more comfortably. But he also felt constant pressure, as if walking a tightrope without a safety net. "I'm learning a lot, Mom," he finally replied. Lucy looked at him with that maternal intuition that sees beyond words. "Just remember who you are, Matthew. Don't let them change you." The comment lingered in his mind for days. Was he changing? Was he becoming someone different to fit into this new world? Meanwhile, in William Montero's luxurious office, a crucial conversation was taking place. "The kid is a diamond in the rough," the businessman said to Edward Rivers. "His ability to analyze data and predict trends is simply astounding." "I agree," Rivers replied, "but I'm worried about Javier. He's not taking this well." Montero waved his hand dismissively. "Javier is replaceable. What Matthew can offer us is unique." "And what exactly do you expect to get from him, William?" Rivers asked cautiously. Montero smiled enigmatically. "The acquisition of Northern Mexican construction is almost complete. When it's announced, our stocks will soar. With the projections Matthew is developing, we'll be able to anticipate every market move." Rivers frowned. "It sounds like you're using a minor for potentially questionable financial advantages." "Don't be dramatic, Edward. I'm just leveraging a valuable resource. Besides, we're giving him a unique opportunity. How many kids from his background get access to elite education and corporate experience?" What neither of them knew was that Isabella, who had gone to look for her father, overheard the conversation from the hallway, her heart racing at what she had just discovered. The cafeteria at the Mexican Institute buzzed with the hum of conversations. When Isabella found Matthew sitting alone at a distant table, absorbed in equations he was scribbling in his notebook, she approached with determined steps, her expression a mix of concern and resolve. "We need to talk," she said, sitting across from him. "It's about Montero." Matthew looked up, intrigued by the urgency in her voice. "What about him?" Isabella glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Last night I overheard my dad talking to Montero. They're using your analyses for something big, the acquisition of Northern Mexican construction. Montero said that with your projections, they could anticipate every market move." "And what's wrong with that? That's what I do at the company. Analyze data and create predictive models." Isabella shook her head, frustrated by his naivety. "You don't understand, Matthew. This acquisition is confidential insider information. If Montero is using your analyses to make investment decisions before the news goes public." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Matthew immediately understood the implications. He had read enough about financial markets to know that what Isabella was suggesting bordered on insider trading, something not only ethically questionable, but potentially illegal. "There must be an explanation," he murmured, though doubt had already settled in his mind. "My dad is worried," Isabella continued. "He says Montero is obsessed with your talent, that he's never seen anything like it. I'm afraid he's willing to do anything to take advantage of your gift." In the days that followed, Matthew observed the tasks he was assigned at Montero Industries with new eyes. He began to notice patterns. The analyses he performed on certain market sectors precisely coincided with corporate moves he later heard mentioned in meetings. The projections Edward Rivers asked for seemed increasingly focused on predicting the behavior of specific stocks. One afternoon, as he worked in his cubicle, Javier Olmedo stopped by. "Montero wants to see you in his office," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Looks like the prodigy is getting another medal." Matthew went up to the executive floor with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. He found Montero reviewing documents with a man he didn't know, impeccably dressed in a suit and with a calculating expression. "Matthew, you're just in time," Montero greeted him effusively. "This is Hector Mondragon, CEO of Pacific Strategic Investments." The man extended his hand with a rehearsed smile. "The famous math genius. William can't stop talking about you." "Hector is interested in your work, Matthew," Montero explained, "specifically your predictive models for the construction sector." An alarm went off in Matthew's mind. The construction sector, northern Mexican construction, the pieces were starting to fall into place. "My models are still in development, Mr. Montero," Matthew replied cautiously. "I don't think they're ready to be shared." "Nonsense," Montero said, waving his hand dismissively. "Your analyses are brilliant, revolutionary. Hector is willing to pay a considerable sum for a strategic alliance that includes your work." "We're talking about figures with a lot of zeros, young Harrison," Mondragon added. "And of course, you'd receive an appropriate compensation, enough to ensure your family never has to worry about money again." The offer was tempting, presented as a direct path to the security he had always wanted for his family. But something didn't feel right. "I need time to think about it," Matthew said finally. Montero frowned, visibly annoyed by his hesitation. "There's not much to think about, Matthew. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Remember everything I've done for you." That night, Matthew couldn't sleep. Montero's words echoed in his mind like a veiled threat. "Remember everything I've done for you." As if his talent, his work and his dedication weren't payment enough. The next morning, during math class, Mrs. Valencia presented an ethical problem related to statistics and decision-making. While his classmates debated, Matthew remained unusually quiet, lost in his own moral dilemmas. After class, Mrs. Valencia pulled him aside. "You seem troubled, Matthew. Is everything okay?" Something about her genuine concern broke through his defenses. He told her about his situation at Montero Industries, Isabella's suspicions, and the recent proposal to share his analyses with Pacific Strategic Investments. Mrs. Valencia listened intently, her expression growing graver. "It sounds like you're in a very delicate position," she said finally. "But let me ask you something. What's the true value of your talent?" "I don't understand." "Numbers have power, Matthew. They can build empires or destroy them. They can help people or harm them. The question is, how do you want to use that power?" The conversation with Mrs. Valencia planted a seed in his mind. That afternoon, instead of going straight to Montero Industries, Matthew stopped at the public library. He researched business ethics, financial regulations, and cases of insider trading. What he discovered left him deeply unsettled. When he finally arrived at the company, Edward Rivers was waiting for him with a worried expression. "Montero has been asking about you. He's impatient for your answer about the collaboration with Mondragon." Matthew took a deep breath. "Mr. Rivers, I need to know something. Are you using my analyses for insider trading?" The color drained from Rivers' face. "Who told you?" "That? No one told me. I figured it out. The patterns are there for anyone who knows how to look, and I know how to look." Rivers led him to an empty conference room and closed the door. "Listen, Matthew. Montero sees you as an invaluable resource. Your ability to predict market trends based purely on public data, without knowing confidential operations, is extraordinary. But he started crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed, like the acquisition of northern Mexican construction." Rivers nodded grimly. Isabella told you, I assume. Yes, Montero plans to use your models to position certain investors, including Mondragon, before the public announcement. That's illegal. Ethically questionable, no doubt. Legally, there are gray areas Montero knows well. Matthew felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him like never before. On one hand, there was the financial security Montero offered, the chance to lift his family out of poverty once and for all. On the other, the certainty that he would be participating in something wrong, using his gift to benefit those who already had too much. I need time to think, he said finally. There's not much time, Matthew. Montero expects your answer tomorrow. That night when he got home, he found his mother preparing dinner while his siblings did their homework at the kitchen table. The scene, so familiar and comforting, reminded him of everything that was at stake. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Lucy asked, noticing his troubled expression. "It was fine, Mom, just a little tired." Carmen, his 12-year-old sister, looked up from her books. "Matthew, can you help me with this math problem? I don't get it." Matthew sat beside her, patiently explaining how to solve the equation. Seeing the spark of understanding in his sister's eyes gave him a satisfaction no financial model could match. As he helped Carmen, Daniel, the youngest at 10, proudly showed him a drawing he had made at school. "Look, Matthew, it's our family, and you're here with your bike." The drawing showed Matthew in his delivery, uniform, smiling on his bike, not as an executive or a math genius, but as the brother they knew and loved. It was in that moment that Matthew made his decision. The next morning, he arrived early at Montero Industries. Instead of going to his usual cubicle, he went straight to William Montero's office, where he was greeted with evident anticipation. "Matthew, just in time. Mondragon will call in a few minutes to hear your answer." "I already have my answer, Mr. Montero," Matthew said with a calm that surprised even himself. "I won't collaborate with Pacific Strategic Investments or any operation based on insider information." The smile froze on Montero's face. "I don't think you understand the magnitude of what you're turning down. We're talking about a compensation that would change your family's life forever." "I understand perfectly. I also understand that I'd be using my talent for something that's not right." Montero slowly stood up, his friendly expression replaced by a mask of coldness. "I gave you an opportunity when no one else would have. I pulled you out of delivering food on a bike. I put you in the best school in Puebla. And this is how you thank me? I'm grateful for all of that, Mr. Montero, but my talent with numbers isn't for sale, at least not to be used this way. And how do you plan to pay for your education? How will you support your family? Will you go back to delivering food in the rain?" Matthew didn't have an answer to those questions, but he stood his ground. "I'll find a way." Montero let out a bitter laugh. "What a waste of talent. Consider your scholarship and your position at this company history. Get out of my office, now." With his heart racing but his conscience clear, Matthew left the office. In the hallway, he ran into Edward Rivers, who had overheard part of the conversation. "You've made a brave decision, Matthew," he said with a mix of admiration and concern, "but also a very costly one." "It was the only decision I could make, Mr. Rivers." The ISD man nodded thoughtfully. "Let me see what I can do. Not all is lost yet." That same afternoon, as Matthew cleaned out his cubicle under Javier Olmedo's satisfied gaze, Isabella appeared, her face lit up with excitement. "Matthew, my dad told me everything. What you did was incredible." "And stupid," Matthew added with a sad smile. "I just lost my scholarship and my job." "Maybe not," Isabella replied, handing him an envelope. "My dad spoke with Dr. Mendoza from the Montero Foundation. Turns out the foundation operates independently from Montero's businesses. Dr. Mendoza wants to see you right away." In Dr. Sofia Mendoza's office, Matthew found not only the foundation's director, but also Mrs. Valencia from the Mexican Institute. "Your teacher told us about your situation, Matthew," Sofia said. "And I must say I'm impressed. Not many young people would have the integrity to turn down an offer like Montero's." "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice, Matthew," Mrs. Valencia interjected. "And you made the right one, even if it was the hardest." Dr. Mendoza leaned forward, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "The Montero Foundation was created precisely to support exceptional talents like yours, without conditions or hidden agendas. We want to offer you a full scholarship, not just to finish at the Mexican Institute, but to attend the university of your choice. And that's not all." She explained that the foundation had a mentorship program for exceptional young people, connecting them with ethical and respected professionals in their fields. In Matthew's case, they had already contacted Dr. Alexander Fuentes, a renowned mathematician and researcher at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. "Dr. Fuentes is eager to meet you," Mrs. Valencia added. "He says your skills could be applied to problems far more important than enriching already wealthy businessmen." "What kind of problems?" Matthew asked, intrigued. "From mathematical models to predict and mitigate natural disasters to optimization, systems for resource distribution in vulnerable communities," Sophia explained. "Your gift can change lives, Matthew, many lives." For the first time in weeks, Matthew felt a tremendous weight lift from his shoulders. His talent didn't have to be a curse or a golden ticket for the powerful. It could be a tool for good. "What about my family?" he asked, still worried. "I need to help them financially." "The scholarship includes a monthly stipend," Sophia assured him. "Plus, Dr. Fuentes is offering a flexible research assistant position. It won't be as much as you we're making with Montero, but it will be enough." 2 weeks later, as Matthew packed his room for his upcoming move to Mexico City to meet Dr. Fuentes, he found his old delivery uniform. He held it in his hands, remembering the long hours pedaling under, the sun and rain, the mental calculations to optimize routes, the scarce tips. That uniform represented his past, but it had also opened the door to his future. Without it, he would never have met Montero. Without Montero, he would never have discovered the true value of his gift. His mother walked into the room, finding him lost in thought. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" Matthew nodded, smiling. "Everything's perfect, Mom. I was just thinking about how much my life has changed in such a short time." Lucy sat beside him, taking his hand. "I'm so proud of you, Matthew, not just for your intelligence, but for your heart, for making the right decision even when it was hard." "I had good teachers," he replied, squeezing her hand. At the Mexican Institute, Matthew finished his final year with honors. Isabella became his best friend and confidant, supporting him every step of the way. Edward Rivers, inspired by the young man's integrity, left Montero Industries to join a company with more ethical practices, and Mrs. Valencia continued to proudly follow the progress of her brightest student. As for William Montero, losing Matthew was only the beginning of his troubles. An investigation by the National Banking and Securities Commission began looking into his financial practices, particularly the acquisition of Northern Mexican Construction. On graduation day, as Matthew received his diploma under the proud gaze of his family, he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in his life, he also knew that road was truly his own. Numbers remained his passion, his secret language for understanding the world. But now he understood that their true value wasn't in how much money they could generate, but in how many lives they could change. And as he prepared to begin his new life in Mexico City, Matthew Harrison, the young man who once saw the city through the handlebars of his bike, now saw it through infinite possibilities.